Welcome back.
Welcome back to Hear Us Out. I'm Renee.
I am Curry.
And as always, thank you so much for listening to us and to our longtime subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And for any new people who are here, make sure to hit subscribe so that you can continue to get notifications to Hear Us Out.
Yes, thank you. And on this episode, we will be continuing
Mm-hmm.
our reading of Plato.
Right?
But this time, we will be starting on this episode, The Republic,
Right.
which to some is Plato's magnum opus.
Mm-hmm.
And the main thing we wanted to read from his great dialogues.
Mm-hmm.
But we decided that we would read a bit of
Right.
the other stuff, Ion, Minnow, and all that good
Right.
stuff. But now it's the main event.
Right.
It's a big thing.
Yes, and so this is book one, and we'll just start with the question of, well,
Well, book one, because the Republic consists of 10 books,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Republic is not in Socratic dialogue like
It's
the
not
other,
like the others. That's correct.
but
That's right.
this one it is written from Socrates' perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It is coming from him, but it's not written in Socratic dialogue.
Right.
And for just as a brief overview of what the Republic is, the Republic is Plato's description of what a society should be and the values that it should hold
Mm-hmm.
and how it should go about trying to exist. And for the longest time, it was something of a blueprint or the goal in a
Right.
sense,
Mm-hmm.
the end goal of what a society
Right.
should
Mm-hmm.
be. And in the first book here, Plato is at that Plato.
Socrates. Right.
Socrates is at a get together. He's at a big get together
Uh-huh.
at Polymarchus's
Mm-hmm.
home, and I think he was leaving. He was leaving
Right.
wherever he was going, but he
Uh-huh.
was stopped along the way. Saying, "Yeah, nah, no,
No,
you
no,
got to
no,
come
no.
over
You
by
have
my
to come.
house.
Right. Right.
We're having a whole thing." And he
Mm-hmm.
goes over there, and there's all these guests, right? And one way or the other, they start to talk about
Justice.
justice.
Right.
And the main question that Socrates asks, and what Socrates is trying to answer,
Mm-hmm.
is what
Is
is
justice.
justice?
Mm-hmm.
And throughout the book, throughout the
Book. Yeah.
chapter,
Mm-hmm.
if you
About
would,
book one. Right.
this book one, just throughout it, they're trying to get to the heart
Mm-hmm.
of this matter, and in the same way, he tried to figure out what
Virtue.
virtue
Right.
is.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to figure out what is the heart, what is
Mm-hmm.
the core
Core. Right.
of justice.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So that's where we are. Right.
that's what that's like I say, a brief overview.
Mm-hmm.
But so we'll begin
Mm-hmm.
with, well, what is
What is
justice?
justice?
And which is the crux of, like I say, the crux of this particular chapter. So, in your own terms, can you tell me what is justice?
Well, when we talked about it before,
Mm-hmm.
I thought of justice as what is to do what is right. When I first like to do what is right, to do what is fair, to do what is right, to do what is just, to solve the problem, to remedy the issue.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that is justice.
Yes.
Okay? And so and in looking at it from from reading book one, you know I think it boiled down to, well, what is owed, I think, is
But
from
that
the
was the
first.
first,
Mm-hmm.
the first take on justice
Mm-hmm.
that Socrates ends up poking holes in.
Mm-hmm.
But because the first person he talks to at
This get
Polemarchus'
yeah at
home
the get
is Cephalus,
mm-hmm.
who is Polemarchus' father.
Mm-hmm.
He's an older gentleman, and Socrates asks him about old age and all that
Right.
stuff,
Mm-hmm.
Cephalus tells him that a lot of people, they don't like getting old.
Mm-hmm.
When they get old, all they could think about is all they could talk about is reminiscing
Right.
about when they were younger.
Younger. That's correct.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, when they were in their prime and all that stuff. But for him, you know, getting older has been nothing more than just another stage of life for
Mm-hmm.
him, you know, to enjoy. And he feels that he's able to move in a particular grace that other people aren't able to move in.
Mm-hmm.
And Socrates asked him on if this ease that he feels in his
Mm-hmm.
old age comes from the wealth
Right.
that he has existed in for his
Mm-hmm.
entire life. You know, and then Cephalus says that, well, yes, it is
Yes.
true
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he has had an easier time
Mm-hmm.
than most people because he has had a particular wealth throughout his
Mm-hmm.
entire life. As his grandfather accrued a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
His father lost, you know, a lot of that. And
Mm-hmm.
throughout his life, he's been able to build back,
Mm-hmm.
you know, some of that. It's
Right.
not what it was.
Was yeah.
It's not what his grandfather
Grandfather. Right.
had, but
Uh-huh.
it's more than what his father left him,
Right.
you know, that he's been able to build back. But it's all he's always lived in, you know,
Comfort.
in the upper
Yes.
strata,
Right. Right.
in the
right.
upper strata
Uh-huh.
of Greek society,
Mm-hmm.
and he knows that. But from his perspective, he says that wealth only exposes the character
Mm-hmm.
of a person.
Mm-hmm.
That if you are a decent person, if you are a good person,
Mm-hmm.
then the wealth will serve to
Oh,
highlight
yeah.
that.
That's right.
But if you are not
Mm-hmm.
decent, you know, if you aren't a good person, then wealth will only serve to
Exactly.
hinder
Yeah.
you and
Mm-hmm.
exacerbate those issues. I
Mm-hmm.
think the thing that he says is that when you reach the end of your life, right? When you're reaching the end of
Right.
your life, as you
Mm-hmm.
get older, you start to think about these things a bit
Mm-hmm.
more. You start to think about, you know, I know, I
Well,
think
it's
because
more.
I could just read his words on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually,
Yeah.
because looking at it from the point of character and good fortune, and how it is that you know if you're not a decent person, you know the money is on, like you say,
Hmm.
will highlight that. And so at the end of your life, you know, you have folk who are trying to get it right,
Hmm.
towards the end. So
So yeah.
yeah,
So this is what Cephalus had to
yeah,
say.
mm-hmm.
Something, he said, which I could perhaps not make most people believe. Know well, Socrates, said he, that when a man faces the thought that he must die, he feels fear and anxiety about what did not trouble him before.
Mm-hmm.
Think of the tales they tell of the next world, how one that has done wrong here must have justice done him there. You may have laughed at them before, but then they begin to rack your soul. What if they are true? And the man himself, whether from the weakness of old age or because he is nearer, has a better sight of them. Suspicion and fear fill him then, and he runs up his account and looks to see whether he has wronged anyone. If he finds any wrongs in his life, he often starts up out of his sleep like a child in terror, and lives with evil expectations. But one who has no wrong on his conscience has always hope beside him. Lovely and good, the old man's nurse, as Pindar puts it. That is a charming bit of his. You know it, Socrates, where he says that when one has lived justly and piously, a lovely companion by his side cheers his heart, the old man's nurse, Hope, who chiefly guides the wayward mind of mortals. A noble saying that, a very much so indeed. In this respect, then, I put down possession of wealth as worth a great deal, not to every man, but to the decent man. Never to deceive anyone, even unconsciously, never to be dishonest, nor to be debtor to any god for sacrifice or any man for money, and so go to that world in fear. To possess money contributes a great share in avoiding all this. It has other uses, many indeed, but setting one thing against another, I would put this as the chief thing for which wealth is most useful to a sensible man. Excellently said, Cephalus, Socrates replied. But this very thing, justice, are we to say that it is just simply to pay back what one has received from anyone? Or is it true that this may be sometimes just and sometimes unjust?
Mm-hmm.
Stop right here for a moment.
Right.
But because that's really when the topic of justice
That's
gets
right.
brought up. When
Mm-hmm.
Cephalus is talking about uh, like as you get older, you start
Mm-hmm.
to think, have I taken more than I've given?
Given right.
Is there anyone in life that I owe?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and wealth and having a certain amount of wealth allows one to pay back any debts that
Mm-hmm.
they feel that they owe a lot more easily. But if you are like I said,
A poor man.
if you are a decent
Mm-hmm.
person,
Mm-hmm.
if you are a decent person, then wealth can help you
Right.
along that way. But
Mm-hmm.
if you aren't coming from that decency,
Right.
and all you will have is that fear, you won't have any hope. You won't
Mm-hmm.
have any chance really of being able to settle all of these issues.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able to find any justice,
Right.
quote unquote, in this lifetime.
Right. And for the poor man, he or she would think that I haven't been able to do enough.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying? Where with the wealthy man, he may feel, well, I have done, too little, and so now
Yes.
I'm trying to make up
Trying to make
ground.
up for it. Yes.
So you're always so it's coming from the same place, but it's
Yeah.
being expressed,
Yeah, because
differently.
the wealthy person
Yes.
can act on that thing,
Right.
whereas the poor
Poor.
person
Right.
only has those
Right.
questions. But like I said, if you are decent,
Hmm.
if you're good, you're going to be able to find a way to allay those
Right.
fears and move into whatever comes next with a
Hmm.
sense of hope.
Hmm.
Whereas, if you don't have those things, all you will have is those fears.
Hmm.
So justice to Cephalus is being able to pay what you owe,
Oh. Hmm.
to give more than you have taken
Hmm.
in this lifetime.
Hmm.
And that's the thing that Socrates is going to break down here,
Hmm.
right? Because he's like he says, um, are we to say that it is just simply to pay back what one has received from anyone, or is it true that this may be sometimes just and sometimes unjust? For example, suppose you have received weapons from a friend when in his right mind. Everyone would say that you should not give such things back if he were mad when he asked for them. Then it would not be right and just to give them back, or always to tell him the whole truth in such a condition. You are right, he said. Then this is not the definition of justice, to speak the truth and to give back whatever one has received. But indeed it is, Polemarchus put in, at least if we must believe Simonides. And that's when Polemarchus, who
This,
was
yeah.
Cephalus' son, breaks into the
Hmm.
conversation. But that is our first
Hmm.
definition of
Hmm.
justice, to pay back what is owed.
Oh. Hmm.
And Socrates questions this and says that is what do you mean by that? What do you
Hmm.
mean, like, literally? Like, what if someone is owed, like I said, someone has a weapon,
Hmm.
right, and they give you this weapon and they want it back, but they're not in their right mind, and it
Hmm.
looks like they're going to do something bad with this weapon? Would it be just then to give them back,
Hmm.
that weapon?
Hmm.
you know and like he said, no one would say that the right decision to make at that moment, would be to give them back that weapon if
Hmm.
there are obvious signs that this person isn't going to, if this person is going to do something bad,
Hmm.
right? So can that possibly be justice,
Hmm.
right? And yesterday when we were talking about this,
Hmm.
there was this how can Socrates tell that this person isn't in their right mind?
Well, yeah. Well, what I said, if I remember correctly, is that how is it that you are the one with the quote unquote weapon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then now you make the choice of whether or not someone is supposed to get what they're owed based on a result that you don't find, I guess, right or fair. I'm like, that's not for you to do. But keeping in mind, when I had said when I was talking about this, I was thinking, even though I was thinking in the form of, because he had given him the weapon first, so maybe you could make those type of judgment calls. But for the person where I didn't give you anything, it was just taken from me, and I want now what is owed to me. And for you to tell me that, oh, but I have to act a certain way or do a certain thing or be of a certain mind in order for me to get what is rightfully mine, I found You know,
So what are you talking about?
talking about, well, yes, well, I have references in the form of reparations.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from because even though I know, okay, yeah, they talked about the weapon, of course,
Yeah.
the time frame in which it was just, which is being discussed here, and so for me, I just thought about reparations, right? Say because that was something that was taken. We did not give you anything, I mean, we didn't give you anything, and then this whole the whole setup is totally different. This was something that was already taken, never, you know, it was taken from us. It was wages and all of those things that was taken from us. And for you to tell me that, oh, I have to, be of a certain mind and act a particular way in order for me to get back what was taken from me, you know, I I take issue
Yeah. It's
with that.
like you said, like Socrates is the one who is the one who's making that evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
Socrates is the one who's making the call,
Mm-hmm.
while Socrates is the one with the weapon,
Right.
with the thing that is owed to the person.
Person. Right.
Right. So how is it just like you said, you're the one making that call.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one being like, I don't think you're on your right mind
Right.
here. That's no objective barometer for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And yeah, but just like I said, I would counter with
Mm-hmm.
like I said, but if somebody is showing obvious signs of like such obvious signs that it like I'm questioning
Yeah.
your sanity,
Uh huh.
right?
Mm-hmm.
This isn't something that is done lightly,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if someone is showing obvious signs
Mm-hmm.
that they are not in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
right, the right place for them to get this thing,
Mm-hmm.
then how could it be right,
Right.
right,
And so in this
for them
instance, right,
to get it?
right. So keeping in mind that with Socrates, that the person that the person gave him the weapon. So what I'm talking about is the person that did not give you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like I
No,
said, it's
what
a
I'm
different
saying
situation, but
it's a different situation,
but the principle is still the
yeah,
same. Yeah.
but hear me out here. Maybe the person who is not of right mind is acting the way that he or she is acting is because of what was taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
You understand me? So for the person who gave you something and they're acting up, well, that's okay.
Yeah, but like I said, the principle's still the
Yeah,
same.
but what I'm saying is that you have a people or you have a person who was responding in a way that they respond because they don't have what they are supposed to have because it was something that was taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So to judge, I think to judge or to judge this person
Unfit.
unfit,
Mm-hmm.
when they don't have what they are supposed to have to make them fit, I think is unfair. I don't think it's just.
What I would say
Mm-hmm.
that because like I said,
Yeah, we talked about
yeah,
this
we
many
talked
times
about we
before,
had
so
did a
yeah.
whole episode on it. We
Right.
know what we stand on
Uh
these
huh. Right.
matters,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, but I was in the idea of not giving back what
Mm-hmm.
is owed to a person
Mm-hmm.
because you deem them unfit to
Mm-hmm.
be able to handle whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is a big thing, especially when it comes to reparations,
Mm-hmm.
right? About it doesn't even have to be reparations,
Yeah. 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 We
but
just
yeah,
yeah.
but I'm
Right.
like, because you can see it like with the like the COVID checks and stuff. That
Mm-hmm.
like you have to show that you were looking for a job. You have to show that you were
Mm-hmm.
doing this and doing that. You
Mm-hmm.
have to show all these
Right.
things in order to qualify
Right.
for
Well,
the like
whatever. Right.
and all these like I said, all these qualifying statements, all
Mm-hmm.
these hoops you got to jump through just to
Mm-hmm.
be given what you need.
Right.
You shouldn't have to prove
Right.
anything other than the fact that you need it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is self evident. That's why you're passing the thing. But no, you got all this other stuff,
Right.
and it's like it's the same thing here,
Mm-hmm.
right? With the reparations thing, it's like you might not use it responsibly. You might not do all this. You might not
Even right
do.
now today with these, all right, in Chicago, they decided to give out like gas cards
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. They're like $150 or whatever. There's some alderman. He says, well, you know, he was worried about giving out these particular gas cards or whatever it is because somebody might because people might sell the gas card, like the gas card is worth $150
Mm-hmm.
and they might sell it for $100. I'm like, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
What is like? What are we talking about here? So you're not going to do what people need because you're thinking, well, they might decide to
What if
sell
they
them.
do something
Yeah,
unintended?
yeah, like whatever.
Yeah,
So that's the same type of
it's the
thing.
same type of thing.
Hmm.
But then, even in the episode before,
Hmm.
that what is owed may not necessarily be what was taken.
Correct. Yes,
You
that's
know,
right. Hmm.
what is owed to us may not be what was taken
Hmm.
from us. You know, like I said, I don't think that
Not what was I was old because what you still owe, what is owed is what was taken, but it's not.
no,
It doesn't. How? Okay, keep going.
because as like I said, what is owed to us
Hmm.
may not necessarily be what was taken.
Okay.
You know, because if we're looking for justice,
Right. We gotta get the camera.
yes, if we're looking if we're looking for justice, if we're
Uh-huh.
saying that we want, you know, for something to be done,
Uh-huh.
you're right.
Okay, yeah.
We're looking for justice, for
Mm-hmm.
something to be done, for our
Mm-hmm.
problem to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
Our problem isn't reparations, not in the form of just a check.
Uh-huh.
Like I think, as I said, I our problem is what the system has done to us and what
Mm-hmm.
it's continuing
Do
to
to
do
do.
to
Mm-hmm.
us, right? And I say, there's nothing that someone can do
Right.
today, someone can pay today that is
Mm-hmm.
possibly going to alleviate the
What had right.
sins of the past.
Best. Right. Correct. Mm-hmm.
And that's not what this should be about anyway.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing you can do to fix that problem. But what you can do is address our situation as it stands today,
Mm-hmm.
right? I said instead of just of like I said, just giving all of us a check, invest in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
fix the educational system,
Mm-hmm.
fix the healthcare system,
Mm-hmm.
right? Invest in our communities,
Mm-hmm.
address poverty,
Yeah.
actually take these things on and give us,
The space and the
a
opportunity to do right.
chance, and do those things that we've been calling for you to do,
Mm-hmm.
for a very long time now. Do that.
Right.
That would
And
be
right. And we're going to get into the timing.
yeah,
Because I think
because
because we
that's
talked
really
about it as well.
yeah,
Is
because
that is
that's
that coming up next part of time? About time because you
because
know.
that no, that's really what Cephalus is trying to say here.
Uh-huh.
Because Polymarchus' whole point,
Mm-hmm.
like as we're going to see
She's
as we get
right.
into it later,
Mm-hmm.
is you know giving what is due to the friend and giving what is due to the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's Polymarchus' whole
Mm-hmm.
point. But Cephalus, and especially in this particular part here, is like primarily about timing. It's about reaching
Mm-hmm.
a particular time in your life
Right.
when you start to draw up these
Yeah.
accounts.
When you and I think I mentioned this either yesterday or whatever. I remember when I read Ola Equino, and he talked about justice being swift. You know, revenge or well, I think I don't know if he used the word revenge or was it justice, but in any case, about whatever the issue was, it was taken care of right then and there. Okay, and so with reparations, because it wasn't taken care of right then and there, right? We are continuing to live in what has not been addressed, right? So, now you can have the conversations about, well, actually, it's not like that conversation has ever ended either,
Mm-hmm.
about getting rid of this system, not, creating poverty, not creating these things to hinder
Mm-hmm.
the growth and development of a
Yeah,
people,
and I would say
you
that
know.
from my perspective,
Uh huh.
that's always been the thing.
That's what I said.
Yeah,
That's always right.
the answer has never been, as far as I'm concerned, 40 acres and a mule.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though,
Right.
like I said, like we said, that's what you said you were
You're
going
going
to
to
do.
do right.
That's what you said you were going
Mm-hmm.
to do. But I don't think that's ever been the answer because the system is broken,
Right.
and you can have all the property, you can have all the
Yeah.
property, all
Who
the
doesn't
wealth.
know this better than us? Right.
It
right.
just the system is still always going to treat you
Right.
like a black man,
Right.
right?
Regardless. Right.
Regardless of where you sit,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what's going, and that's the
Right.
issue here.
Issue. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
So addressing that,
Mm-hmm.
that is what's being owed. So like we talked about before
Mm-hmm.
with this like it is not just it's not just to give a madman a weapon, even
Mm-hmm.
if he's owed it.
Right.
But it's also not just to do nothing in that
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Situation. That's right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
It's also not because the denial is only a part
Mm-hmm.
of the justice because this
Right.
this man is still owed.
That's right.
He's still owed. But what he may need at that moment, like I said, is therapy,
Right. That's
it's
right.
help,
Right.
something to get him back into his right mind,
Right.
right?
And that's sort of like the same. We were talking.
Yeah,
It's sort of like the same thing where we are.
yeah.
What is owed to us now? You know, clean water. You know, the eradication of this system that crushes people. In a nutshell, like you get rid of that, everything else will fall into place. You'll have the healthcare, the housing, the education, the fair wages. You do have all of the things that you are supposed to have.
So like I
So
said,
yeah,
yeah, it's not just enough to say that this is not necessary. It's not
right.
that the denial in and of itself is
Mm-hmm.
not justice. It's
Right.
what because I said the person is still owed.
Right.
It's what you do.
Do. Mm-hmm.
Like you said, trying to alleviate the situation,
Mm-hmm.
trying to solve the problem as it
Mm-hmm.
presents itself. So
Right.
you can't just not
Not
give
doing right.
him the weapon and
Right.
think that you've done something.
Right. And that's been
You
I'll
know,
say our issue is that
but that's kind of what
right.
But the only thing, so our tangent here is
Yeah.
our tangent. What Socrates is saying is
Mm-hmm.
that paying back what is owed is not always
Justice.
justice.
Right.
You know, not directly. It's not as lateral
Yes.
as
Not as lateral. That's right.
So sometimes it's a bit more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes giving someone what they are owed
Mm-hmm.
can be unjust.
Mm-hmm.
Can cause more harm than it does good.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I guess for some perspectives, the aim of justice
uh-huh.
is not serving the common good.
Mm-hmm.
It's only you know doing
Doing yes.
doing what is owed.
Oh, that's
That's
right.
for some people that's
That's
the
it.
aim
Right. Right. That's
of
the aim
justice. But
to do right.
if everything is supposed to be in service of that common good,
Mm-hmm.
right, then nothing exists in a vacuum, and
Right.
everything is interconnected. So
Right.
you can't just serve justice for justice sake. It
Mm-hmm.
has to all bleed
Right.
back
That's the word.
into
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
overall thing.
Right. So yeah.
And then that's kind of where Socrates is coming from and his
Mm-hmm.
perspective on justice. But then Polemarchus breaks in, you know, and his whole thing is about, how what is appropriate to give to and that justice is giving what the friend is owed, quote
Mm-hmm.
unquote, and giving what the
Enemy.
enemy is
Mm-hmm.
owed. Because I think as they go on here, let me see, right?
What page are you on?
I'm still on 129.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm still here. Yeah.
because
That's
this
what I
is
have
when
written down.
Cephalus leads the conversation and Polemarchus takes it up for
Mm-hmm.
him. And he said, was the reply, that to give back what is owed to each is just. In saying that, I think he was right. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, in any case, Socrates said, Simonides is not to be easily disbelieved. A wise man, a man inspired by God. But what does this mean? Perhaps you know Polemarchus, but I don't. For he certainly does not mean what we were speaking of just now. to give anything and everything back on demand when the depositor is not in his right mind. Yes, deposit is a debt owed, isn't it? Yes. But one must by no means give back on demand when the depositor is not in his right mind. True. Then it seems Simonides means something else, something different from that, when he said it is just to give back what is owed. No doubt of it. For he believes that friends owe friends something good, not to do them harm. I understand, said Socrates. Whoever gives back a sum of gold to the deposit does not give back what is owed, if the giving back and the taking do harm, and if the giver and the taker are friends. Is not that what Simonides means, according to you? Exactly. Oh, and it should be given back to enemies, whatever the thing owing may be. Certainly, Polemarchus says, what is owing to them. And from enemy to enemy, the debt is surely something evil, as is right and proper.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, Polemarchus says that, well, Simonides, what he's talking about is not directly giving back what is owed, but giving back what is proper.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Giving what is proper to the enemy
Right.
and to the friend, because for a friend the debt is something good,
Right. Mm-hmm.
right? And what's proper for that person is something good,
Mm-hmm.
whereas what you may owe an enemy naturally is something not good. It's
Yeah.
something of evil, if you
Right.
would.
So it needs to be fitting.
So it needs to be
Proper.
fitting. Yes. And
You heard that, y'all? It has to be fitting.
and Socrates takes umbrage with this as well.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
you can.
Well, Socrates has all the questions.
Well, yeah, it's not fair to say that he takes umbrage with it.
Uh-huh.
He questions.
Yeah, as I say, he has all
Yeah,
the questions,
yeah,
right?
he questions it. You know. All right.
So then he gets into the, I think it's the last paragraph on page 128, or is it 129? I'm not sure. Where he talks about the nobleman, the nobleman.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what you're. Okay, all right, cool.
But no, I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
Because this is him. Because he's still trying to. This is him poking holes in the art
Yeah.
and trying to figure out, well, where does the justice come in? Is really the thing that he's trying to find here, because they go back and forth about the role that a just person plays in the, I guess you could say, in the serving of the debt.
Okay.
Right.
Right.
And he says, let me see if I can find it exactly, because this is a very long conversation with them two going back and forth. And he says, "Oh, good heavens," Socrates said, "look here. Suppose the question were put to Simonides. What does the art called medicine give as owing and proper to what?" Say what you think he would answer. "Clearly," he said, "it gives drugs and food and drink to bodies." "And what does the art called cookery give to what, as owing and proper?" "Flavorings to victuals." "Then what art, giving back to what, should be called justice?" If we must follow these models, Socrates, the art which gives back benefits to friends and hurts to enemies. Then to do well to friends and to do ill to enemies he calls justice. I think so. But who is best able to do well to sick friends and ill to sick enemies as regards disease and health? The physician. And who, when they are on board ship, as regards the dangers of the sea? The pilot. Now then, the just man. In what action for what work is he best able to benefit friends and hurt enemies? In war and alliance, I think. Very good. If men are not sick, however, the physician is useless, true. And if not at sea, so is the pilot, yes. Then is the just man useless if they are not at war? Not at all, I don't think that. So justice is useful even in peace? Yes, it is. So is agriculture, isn't it? Yes, for getting crops, yes. And shoemaking too? Yes. Yes, for getting shoes, I think you would say, certainly. Well then, justice. For what use or getting would you say it is useful? For contracts, Socrates. By contracts, you mean partnerships. Of what? Partnerships, of course. In the game of checkers, is the just man a good and useful partner, or the good checker player? The checker players. For laying bricks and stones, is the just man a better and more useful partner than the builder? Not at all. What partnership is the just man a better partner for than the builder, or the harp player, as the harp player is better than the just man for playing music? money partnerships. Except in using money, perhaps, polymarkets, when, for instance, the partner must buy or sell a horse or money for money, and the man who knows about horses is better, right? So it appears. Yes, and with the boat builder or the pilot, it seems so. Very well. When is the just man more useful than the others? To do what with gold or silver together? In making a deposit, Socrates, and keeping it safe. You mean when it is not to be used at all, but to be hoarded. Exactly. So when the money is useless, justice is useful about it. It looks like that.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have a question. What is what is justice, or what would be justice? I guess
Mm-hmm.
for the man who served 30 years in prison for a crime that he did not commit.
Is justice for that person?
Yeah. Well, he gets out because of he finally, he gets out because come to find out that
Mm-hmm.
he did not commit the crime that he was serving all of this time for. What would be the justice for him?
I guess some will say he already got justice because
What?
he's no longer in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh,
That's it. He serves 30 years of his life.
what? But I don't know. Money?
No, I'm just saying what would be justice for him? Okay, we have 30 years of his life in prison.
Well,
I'm
justice would be to go back in time and have him not be in jail for
mhm,
30 years. I guess.
right. So okay. So you get out. Sorry, my bad. Now try to make do. Try to get yourself together. You be
What? What?
your parent. You've had parents to die. There's so many things that has transpired in that 30s of you just trying to protect your own head and your own self in prison. So you find so you do get out, and what would be the the just yeah the justice for him is that I'm just I'm just I'm just inquiring like
uh, uh, what do you mean? Like, this is
what is he owed?
freedom.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, so this whole back and forth with Polemarchus here.
Mm-hmm.
Socrates is once again like he's questioning again and again. I
Mm-hmm.
like because there's this you remember Columbo?
The
Yeah,
yeah
the show with
yeah.
Columbo. Who said that because I feel like he's kind of doing the same thing that like what Columbo was doing, like because Peter Falk, who's the person who plays Columbo, says
Mm-hmm.
that dealing with Columbo is like being pecked to death by a duck,
Mm-hmm.
right? By like this absurd thing again and again. It's kind of what Socrates is doing. It's
Mm-hmm.
just slowly pecking away, but not with any malice,
Mm-hmm.
not with any point, just slowly eroding away. What this your opinion and or what your idea of justice may be in a
Mm-hmm.
particular context. Just slowly pecking it away. Boop, 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 boop. And I find that funny, and, because at the beginning, he's like, well, what is proper to give to the enemy, and what is proper to give to the friend, you have to give them what they're owed,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And he's like, well, what? How does the just man play into that? How does
Mm-hmm.
justice play into that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? The just man is like you said. Is he only useful at war?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because a doctor, their justice, their art, right? Because the art of a just man, if the art of the just man is to give the enemy what is owed and the friend what is owed, right? The art of the doctor is to heal. The heart of the chef is to cook, and to,
Mm-hmm.
the heart of the art of the sailor of the pilot is to safe voyages over the ocean, right? If the art of the just man is to give what is proper to the enemy and to the ally, and where is that possible? Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, at war. Like you said, so justice is only useful at war. The just
Mm-hmm.
man is only useful during war. Like no, that he's useful outside of war,
Mm-hmm.
right? So outside of war, what is the just man useful for?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so he's searching. I can feel like I can feel him like searching for something like contracts, and partnerships, and stuff like that. And he said, "Well, okay, if you're playing checkers, what's
Mm-hmm.
more useful, a checker player or a just man?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the just man. And no, I mean, well, the checker player. If you're building a house, who's more useful, a builder or a just man? A builder. So you're telling me that so if you're dealing with money, who's how is the just man any more useful than anyone else
All
in
right.
this regard?
Mm-hmm.
Because he's going to be able to keep it safe. He's going to be able to safeguard,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's going to be able to like, and he leads with this little poignant statement here, the poignant little thing where he says, "So when the money is useless, justice is useful about it."
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the just man is going to know how to best use the money, how to best keep and use this money,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I said, he goes on to break that down even more until um until Polymarchus is just breaks, right? Because they're going back and forth over and over again. Because I think and at some point Socrates, so the just man is merely just a thief,
Mm-hmm.
someone who takes and uses money, to the best of their ability, because no one else is able to better do that
Mm-hmm.
than the just man,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like he said, because well then, my friend, justice is nothing very serious. If it really is useful only for useless things, Let us look at this in another way. Is not the best at attack in battle or boxing or anything else also the best at defense? Certainly. Then in disease, he who is good at keeping it away, the same man is best at putting it in without being found out. It seems so to me. And so on a campaign. A good guardian is the one who can best steal the enemy's plans for his various doings. Certainly. That if a man is a good guardian of anything, he is also a good thief of the same thing. It looks like it. Then if the just man is good at guarding money, he is good at stealing it. At least that is what the argument indicates. So the just man has been shown to be a thief, as it seems. You must have learned that from Homer. For Homer loves Autolycus, the grandfather of Odysseus, on his mother's side, and says he was first of all the world in thievery and swearing his oath. So it seems, according to you, and according to Homer, and according to Simonides, that justice is a kind of thievery, for the benefit of friends, however, and the hurt of enemies. Didn't you say that? Upon my word, I don't know any longer what I did
Right.
say.
Right.
However, I still think justice is to help your friends and hurt your enemies.
Right.
Like I say,
Like I don't even know.
like
I don't even remember though.
he backed them into a corner,
Uh huh.
and to what he to what all Polymarchus can possibly say is, look, I can't like I say, he's been pecked to death by a duck. I just constantly is eroding away until all he can say is, look, I still believe what I believe,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then Socrates is not done yet,
Right.
because he goes on to say that, can a just man even bring himself to do harm to
Mm-hmm.
another person?
If he's just.
Yeah, if he's just,
All right.
right? If doing harm and all that stuff is not, can if we can agree that doing harm to another human being
It's
is
unjust.
unjust, it's
Right.
wrong, how can justice, possibly do that? How can
Mm-hmm.
justice possibly bring harm to another person? You know, and once again, he cannot bring himself to say that he can't justify, once again, he can't hold up under Socrates' pecking,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's because one of the points that he makes is that, you know is not justice a human virtue that is necessary too? Then, my friend, if men are injured, they must necessarily become more unjust. Because
Mm-hmm.
this is to Socrates' point here.
Mm-hmm.
Is what he's saying is that if the doling out of justice is always, like in service of the common good, of the overarching good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And justice is doing harm to your enemies, and doing harm is can make people unjust, right? Because people in a state of harm, in a state of pain, they're more easily able to justify being unjust,
Yeah.
right?
Uh huh.
Like it says, so it seems that my friend, if men are injured, they must necessarily become more unjust.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like we said before, like crime doesn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
Poverty causes crime.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to address crime, you should be about the business of addressing poverty, right? So when all these people are saying that, we need to just hire more policemen and do all this stuff, like then you're not actually about the
Yeah.
business of addressing crime,
Right.
you know.
That's because you're not even about justice. You're not about doing what's right. I mean, because the right thing in that moment would be to address the problem. Like
Hmm.
that is the right thing.
And this is
So
kind of what
yeah.
Socrates says.
Uh huh.
But can the just make men unjust
Mm-hmm.
by justice, or in general, can the good make men bad by means of virtue? Is that possible?
Mm-hmm. There is no balance here. I think you're about to even
Mm-hmm.
you know get into that. Is that it's being put out as if justice has to come at a cost. That there is a negative and a positive. There's going to be some type of imbalance
Mm-hmm.
if you are to do justice in the way
Yeah.
that's being described
But
here.
Polemarchus said it in and of himself
Uh huh.
when Socrates asked that, he
Right.
says, "No, impossible."
Mm-hmm.
Right? For it is, and then Socrates says, "For it is not the work of heat to make cold, but the opposite."
Uh huh.
Yes, and it's not the work of what is dry to make things wet, but the opposite. Certainly. Nor is it the work of the good to injure, but the opposite, so it seems. And the just man is good? Certainly. Then it is not the work of the just man to injure Polemarchus, whether to injure a friend or anyone, but that is the work of the unjust man. I think you are absolutely right, Socrates. Then if one says it is right to give back what is owing to each, and means by this that injury is owing to his enemies from the just man and benefits to his friends, the one who said it was no wise man, for he did not speak the truth, since it has been shown that to injure anyone is never just anywhere. Right? Boom. So pretty much the point that you were talking about with balance,
Mm-hmm.
right? Socrates asks him, can justice make men unjust?
Mm-hmm.
Right? He says, and then Polemarchus says no.
No. Right. But
And I would say, and I'll add on to that, not when it's actually justice.
right.
Doing justice is not meant to do harm.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to alleviate the situation as
Right.
best as possibly could. And if it's doing harm, right? If it is doing harm, then it isn't justice.
So, but if we're talking talking in this imbalance, I want to make sure
Mm-hmm.
when is it not doing harm? If you're alleviating poverty,
Mm-hmm.
well, see what then alleviating poverty hurts whom?
Um, no one.
Well, let the rich and the elite tell you, like they're gonna lose something out the deal if everything is just and fit. Well, that's the
Mm-hmm.
system that we live under now. That
But that isn't a system of justice,
justice. I
right?
know.
That's yeah.
I know. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
disagreeing. What I'm saying is that if justice is meant to, well, I would think that justice is meant to balance out, to keep everything in balance, to do what is right, to do what is fair. And you have those who think that in order for us to do what is right and what is fair, it's going to cost me. It's going to hurt me to do what is right and what is fair. This is just the temperament. Well, I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
say this general, but you see this type of temperament happening already.
And like
You
we
know,
like we have stated many times
uh huh,
before, there is no equity in these things.
right,
There's no
uh
equity
huh,
in right and wrong,
mm-hmm,
good and bad.
mm-hmm,
It isn't a balancing act.
right,
It's a road.
mm-hmm,
It's a path.
mm-hmm,
You know, and so pursuing justice, trying to be just,
Mm-hmm.
is from an individual point of view
Mm-hmm.
can be seen as like a balancing
Right.
act and you trying your best to
Mm-hmm.
do your best.
Mm-hmm.
But on a societal level,
Right.
it's merely about doing what is right in context
Right.
for those people and as it best serves the person
Mm-hmm.
and society as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you are prioritizing the maintenance of your society
Mm-hmm.
over the maintenance of your people at the individual level, then you're not doing
Justice.
justice.
Right.
Right? Our society as it functions today
Mm-hmm.
has this predilection for the American dream of
Uh-huh.
being able to make it big and
Mm-hmm.
getting up there. And no matter how badly you know the rich act or the
Mm-hmm.
rich try to rig the game, there's a sizable contingent among the populace who believe that they still want to make it big.
Uh-huh.
They still want to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
So getting to that place, right? Doing that,
Mm-hmm.
they even at the level that they are now,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm sorry if you can hear the what
Yeah,
you
I don't
call it
know.
in the
Yeah,
background, but I think it might be
dump
the
truck. I don't know
dump
what
truck
it
or
is.
something.
I don't know what it
But yeah, even in doing that,
is. Mm-hmm.
they don't want to do anything that can hinder the dream. They don't want to hold.
Right.
They don't want to close loopholes. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to because it might, even though by all accounts, statistically, you're not going to make it to that level.
Right.
You're not going to get rich, and the rich people are rigging the game to make sure that you don't
Mm-hmm.
make it to that levels because they're trying to hoard their riches, right? So those people, so even though you're not going to make it to that level, right? You still hold on to that dream. You're still holding on to that thing, and so you're not allowing for any legislation to be passed. You're not
Mm-hmm.
allowing for
Right.
anything because you think
You're
that
not even allowing for any type of prioritizing.
yeah, because you're thinking
Right.
that I
Yeah.
still trying to get to that place, and
Uh-huh.
the government in of itself is prioritizing that dream over the
That's
reality
right.
of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not living in a system of justice.
Right.
We're not living in a system that is we're living in a system that is prioritizing itself
Mm-hmm.
and its image of self over the people that exist in it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that is not justice, as especially not as Socrates calls it,
Right.
because justice and all these things, even on the most individual basis,
Mm-hmm.
is meant to serve the common good,
Mm-hmm.
and that common good is reciprocal in a sense, right? Meant to serve the
Right.
people,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to talk about later on.
Mm-hmm.
All right, when Thrasymachus comes in
Yeah.
about
Our
what it
favorites.
means to be a ruler
Yeah.
and what it means to be a
Might is
ruler.
right.
Yeah,
Might is justice.
like I said, when he's talking about well the rule, their prerogative of a good ruler, of a
Mm-hmm.
just ruler, is the people,
Right.
are the subjects. The
Right.
decisions that they're making
Mm-hmm.
is for the betterment of their
Mm-hmm.
subjects, right? And if they're doing things to further their own aims, and then
Mm-hmm.
that's not
Right.
justice, right? But that's actually what's next, actually.
Yeah.
Because after this whole back and forth with Polemarchus about giving people what is owed, like I said,
Mm-hmm.
he ends on a point that a just person does not bring harm to their enemies or their
Mm-hmm.
allies, because in the pursuit of justice, right, is different from winning a war.
Uh-huh.
There's a whole different metric,
Mm-hmm.
and he ends up getting Polemarchus to agree with him, and then we get to Thrasymachus, who
Our favorite,
evidently
our favorite friend, our favorite friend.
evidently has been trying to break into this
Yeah,
conversation
conversation. They're
the
like, no,
entire
no, no,
time,
right.
but everybody else
They're like,
has been
hold up,
holding him back.
right,
No, let him talk and
right,
everything. And he's been wanting to break in,
right.
but now
Here he comes.
that this conversation has come to rest, Thrasymachus breaks in
Right,
like a bat out of hell.
right.
He was waiting for his opportunity to say something,
Well,
right? And he says his very first thing he said.
right.
By Heracles, here's the famous irony of Socrates. I knew it. I told these gentlemen all along. You will never answer. Only play simplicity and do anything rather than answer if someone asks a question, right? Because
Right.
the first thing he does,
And you coming in all these questions, you don't have no
and
answers.
you'll never have any
Right.
answers.
What's the answer? What's
Mm-hmm.
the answer? What is justice? Give us the answer. We want to
Mm-hmm.
direct that. Stop asking all these questions, tricking us. Every time we say something, we trip up and you're tricking us with another question. Just
You
give
don't
us the
have you don't
answer.
have no
You don't
answers.
have no answers.
Like this is another thing Dr. Samaka says. What's all this stuff and rubbish, Socrates? There are you two, bowing and scraping to each other all this time like a pair of simpletons. But if you really want to know what justice is, don't go on like that, merely asking questions and trying to trip him up whatever he answers, which you think is a grand thing. You know quite well it's easier to ask than to answer. Now answer yourself, and tell me what you think justice to be. Don't say it is what it is due, or useful, or profitable, or what pays and what benefits. Tell me simply and clearly what you mean. I won't accept it if you give me nonsense like that.
Right.
Right? And so
So how
Socrates comes back.
how you want me to answer
And
again?
Socrates comes back and says, suppose you ask someone, how many are 12? And suppose you said to him both beforehand, don't say twice six. Don't say twice six,
Mm-hmm.
or three times four, or six times two, or four times three. I won't accept it if you give me nonsense like that. It's plain, I think, that no one would answer such a question, and you know that quite well. But suppose he said to you, what do you mean, Thrasymachus? I might not give any of those answers which you forbade. You surprise me, not even if one of them is right. Must I answer something which is not true? Or what do you mean? What would you say to that? Pooh, he said, much alike, aren't they, this case and that? There's nothing to hinder their being so, said Socrates, but even if they are not alike, and if the man thinks they are, do you believe he will any the less answer what appears to him, whether we forbid him or not? So
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty. So what Socrates is saying, so you're telling me that what you're looking for is a specific answer. You don't
Right.
actually want me to answer.
Right.
You just want me to say the thing that you want to
Want me to
hear,
see it exactly.
right? And like I and the entire time, Thrasymachus is insulting Socrates.
Right.
Socrates is playing coy, constantly calling Thrasymachus wise
Mm-hmm.
and smart and all these things. And that's when Thrasym and he asks, "Well, you tell me
Mm-hmm.
what you want me to say."
Right.
Right? Because if I can't answer the question, even though I might not have even said any of those things,
Right.
right? But you forbade me from
Right.
saying, I
Same.
might not
Right.
have even said that. But evidently, you're looking
Mm-hmm.
for an answer here. So why don't you just tell me? You just tell
Yeah.
me, what is it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Here we go.
So that's Thrasymachus says. Then listen. I declare justice is nothing but the advantage of the stronger. Why don't you applaud that? Because you won't. Like this man, he is very confrontational.
Yeah. Might is right. Might is
Hmm.
justice.
And I find it because the first thing that Socrates does here
Mm-hmm.
is question it.
Right.
It says, if I may first learn what you mean, Socrates said, for I don't know yet. The advantage of the stronger, you say, is just. And what do you really mean by that, Thrasymachus? It cannot be anything like this. If Polydamas, the all around athlete, is stronger than we are, and if a diet of beef is an advantage to his body, then his diet is an advantage and just for us, the weaker,
Mm-hmm.
right? Damn you, Socrates, he said. You take me just in the way to spoil the whole thing, right? So that's so Socrates questions. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean the advantage of the stronger?
Right.
If an athlete has a diet that makes him strong,
Mm-hmm.
right? Wouldn't
Right.
it be to the advantage of the weaker to
Right.
use that diet,
Diet to
right?
become
To
strong.
become stronger? Isn't that to our advantage as
Right.
well? And then he's like, no,
No.
no, that's not what I mean. No,
Damn you! Try. See,
yeah,
there
you,
you go.
you,
Twisting.
you only asked me so you can try to spoil it and
Right.
rid it. And Socrates asked, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and this leads to a whole other avenue of the conversation,
Right.
right?
Are you on page 142? Where you at? Where are you?
And I'm at 138,
Okay.
139 right now.
Okay. All right.
I could go to 142.
Yeah, well, actually, all of that leads up to it because I
Yeah.
had wrote it down that justice doesn't help the weak; it empowers the strong. That's how
Mm-hmm.
you know. What's his name?
Just a lot.
Yeah, that's what I had framed it, and then I said, in that last paragraph that justice is a means to an end. When
Mm-hmm.
and it's a means to an end for the strong. And then the last two sentences. So it's basically that whole other
Yeah.
paragraph.
Yeah. But, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
because that whole other paragraph, because
All
this is
right.
the part here where because they go back and forth. They go
Right.
back and
Uh
forth,
huh.
and he and Fusamaka says that doesn't the democracy pass democratic laws
Right.
and despotic
No.
government passes despotic laws and
Mm-hmm.
aristocracy passes aristocratic laws. Every government passes laws to their own benefit,
Right.
and it is justice for the weaker to follow those
Those laws. Right.
laws for the maintenance of society.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
You know, and then Shaka's got those laws aren't meant
Right.
specifically to help to maintain the rule of those governments
Right.
because the point of those governments is to help its
So right.
citizens, right? They're like, no, but then he comes with the if a shepherd has the sheep, isn't
Yeah,
the
that's
point
right.
of the shepherd's craft is to maintain the health of the sheep,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing for rulers,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what the Samarcas
Right.
counters with.
Right. Because you think shepherds and ox herds look for the good of their sheep and cattle, why do they fatten them and take care of them? Only because they look out for their own good and their masters? Just so the rulers in states, those who really rule, are to their subjects what people are to sheep? Can you conceive of anything else? What do you think they look for night and day, but how to get benefit for themselves? You are a long way out about justice and the just. Is justice just, or really another man's good, the advantage of the stronger, the ruler, but the private damage of the subject, the servant? Injustice is the opposite, the rules, and rules those who are really simple creatures and just ones. But the subject do what is the advantage of the other who is stronger, and they make him happy by serving him, but themselves not at all. You must consider, my most simple Socrates, that a just man comes off worse than an unjust man everywhere. First of all, in contracts with one another, wherever two such are in partnership, and the partnership is dissolved, you would never find the just man getting the better of the unjust, but he always gets the worst of it. Secondly, in public affairs, when there are taxes and contributions, the just man pays more than the unjust, unless the unjust less from an unequal estate, from an equal estate. When there are distributions, the one gains nothing and the other much. Again, when these two hold public office, the just man gets his private affairs by neglecting them into a bad state. If he has no other loss and he has no profit from the treasury because he is just, besides, he is unpopular with friends and acquaintances if he will not serve them contrary to justice. But it is quite the opposite with the unjust man. I mean, the man that I spoke of before, the one who can gain great profits. Consider him then. If you wish to decide how much greater advantage he finds impersonally to be unjust rather than just, you will understand it more easily, most easily, if you come to the most perfect injustice, which makes the unjust man most happy, and makes those who are wronged and will not be unjust most miserable. That is a despotism, which takes away others' property, not in little bits secretly and by force, but all in a lump. Things sacred and things profane, things private and things public. A small part to these, if a man is caught doing wrong, he is punished and has the greatest disgrace. In sacrilege and kidnapping and housebreaking, swindling and thievery, the piecemeal criminals have names from their crimes. But whenever someone not only takes the people's money, but kidnaps and enslaves all the citizens of his city. Instead of these ugly names, he is called happy and blessed, both by the citizens themselves and by all who hear of the man who has committed the whole and perfect injustice. For those who call injustice a shame do so because they fear suffering the injustice, not doing it. So, my dear Socrates, injustice, when it is grand enough, is more mighty than justice, more generous, more masterly. And as I begin by saying, the just really is the advantage of the stronger, but the unjust is to his own profit and advantage.
Mm.
Ooh, that sounds too
So
familiar.
Thrasymachus goes on this whole diatribe
Mm-hmm.
about, you know, he's like the shepherd only looks out for the health of the sheep for their own benefit.
Right.
They don't do it for the sheep; they do it for them.
That's right.
Right. And that's the same thing with rulers. And he goes on to talk about how in some cases injustice
Right.
is
Better,
better
right.
than
Justice, that's
justice.
right.
Completely countering the argument that he made earlier.
Well, yeah.
That what justice is,
Mm-hmm.
because he's not even trying to define it anymore,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think, but his whole point now is that the way he looks at it, uh, it's only injustice because people don't want to suffer under it,
Right.
right? But it's justice to the people who actually benefit from it, right?
Right.
So the injustice of the weaker is actually the justice of the stronger,
Right.
and the justice of the stronger, which others may call injustice,
Mm-hmm.
is in a lot of ways better than what the weaker would call
Yeah,
justice.
you're complaining and you have this angst only because of where you are in this particular system.
Mm-hmm.
If you're at the top and you have the power and the might, then everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you're suffering underneath it, well, of course you're going to complain because that's
Mm-hmm.
where you are. And I'm like, I know that sounds familiar. That sounds very familiar. You know, look at you know, you have folk they love Donald Trump, they love Elon Musk and the Jeff Bezos. That's your stride, and you want to be in that type of position. You want to be there, so you don't do anything to hinder that because you too one day I guess can become that. And so you're gonna do whatever you can, and when you get up there, if well, okay,
Mm-hmm.
when
If
you get there, if you get up there, you're gonna do the exact same thing, and that's the problem. That's actually the problem,
mm,
But that's how he looks at it. Is that
that's how he looks at it.
there's really no injustice. You're just mad and you're complaining because you're not,
Yeah. What he says,
you know.
and he you try he has does this whole long thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? He does this whole long, then he tries to leave.
Right?
He tries
They're
to
like, no, 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 no. You
he
can't
tries
leave
to
just yet, right?
like drop the
Right,
mic and be
right,
like, all
right.
right, that's it, I'm
No, no,
done.
no,
And
no.
everybody, in the whole meeting, the whole get
Right?
together was like, nah, no, no,
Nah, nah, nah,
no,
nah. Right.
they ain't leaving on that.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on saying that justice is more profitable and better than
Mm-hmm.
that injustice
Injustice.
is better than justice,
Well,
right?
if
So
yeah.
Plato breaks this down
Mm-hmm.
and says he's a little duck. He's a
Yes.
duck pecking at you at the integrity of your answers.
And he go with all the questions. He has
He breaks
questions.
it down
Mm-hmm.
and he says, okay, the shepherd may be only thinking about what he gets
Mm-hmm.
out of the situation,
Mm-hmm.
but the art of shepherding prioritizes
Mm-hmm.
the health and maintenance of the flock,
Right.
right? Same thing as the art of being a doctor. Like, what is a doctor? Is a doctor a man of medicine or a doctor a moneymaker,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Thrasymachus answers, well, the doctor's a man of medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So when a doctor is practicing his art of medicine, his only priority is the health and maintenance of whomever
Yeah.
needs the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a chef, same thing with a pilot, right? But them being able to profit from it that is a whole different art in of it. That's the art of wage making.
Right.
That's what he says. Being able to make a wage is a whole different art
Mm-hmm.
in and of itself that exists in tandem
Right.
with
The art. Right.
the art of medicine and
Mm-hmm.
all these other arts and the art of shepherding.
Mm-hmm.
But it is not the art in and of
So.
itself.
Mm-hmm.
The pursuit of profit the is not the art of rulership.
Mm-hmm.
It exists in tandem
Tantrum
with
with it.
ruling.
Mm-hmm.
But the art of being a ruler is prioritizing and maintaining those whom you are meant to rule.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you are prioritizing your own profit above that, you're not being a ruler, you're
Right.
being a moneymaker.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And he goes on to say, and to this greater point about, injustice being more profitable than justice,
Right.
is that even say that he talks about these grand armies that just take out and open,
Mm-hmm.
right? It says even those people have to have some type of code of honor among
Right.
themselves to even be able to trust each other enough to undertake such a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So even then, there is a sense of justice, no matter how perverted and or twisted it may be, that has led them to that life. They are still acting from a sense of justice, and even to act, like
Mm-hmm.
he goes on to even say, to act, just to take an action means that you have to have a sense of rightness in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if there was this conflict within yourself, you would never be able to act to make a choice. You are acting even then from a sense of justice. So this idea that injustice is more profitable than justice
Mm-hmm.
doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that justice is, to the advantage of the stronger
So greed isn't good.
and
Greed is
at
good.
all times doesn't make any sense.
Greed is good. When I
He
was reading, I'm like,
completely,
greed is good.
he
No.
completely, let's say he pecks it to death.
Uh-huh.
And Thucydides, he constantly, because he is constantly stated how reluctant he is to
Mm-hmm.
agree with a lot of Socrates' points,
Right.
but he agrees nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And he's constantly doing this. And he also, Socrates also makes a point about penalty, about how you have to
Mm-hmm.
penalize, right, the ruler.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about how good men, just men, do not want to rule.
Right.
In a just city, you wouldn't have people aiming for the top spot.
Mm-hmm.
You have people aiming to not take it,
Right.
right? But it is more unjust for the wrong person to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
So if glory is not enough, and glory is never enough because glory is, like it says, a position seeking,
Mm-hmm.
place seeking is not a just thing to do. Money making, trying to pursue that is not just as well, right? So it has to be through penalty, quote unquote, through penalty. You know, the penalty of someone doing the job wrong and making life worse for others. That penalty, that is the thing that is going to lead the just ruler into that position.
Mm-hmm.
And when that person occupies that position because they're occupying it reluctantly, they know that they're going to only do their job for the benefit of those people, of their subjects.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't looking for profit, they aren't looking for glory. They're looking to quite simply do the job because they understand the necessity of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's a point that we've talked about many times before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, like the fallacy, the problem with leadership
Leadership.
is that
Mm-hmm.
people are so eager to be
Be led.
led.
Mm-hmm.
And we've even said before that, like just the idea of being like president and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. You're a custodian.
Mm-hmm.
You're a steward. You're not there for honor. You're not there for money. You're there to do a job,
Mm-hmm.
and your job is maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is, right? And when you're not maintaining, when you're
Mm-hmm.
not prioritizing, your people, you're not doing your job. You're not maintaining. You're
Mm-hmm.
not being a custodian. Not being a steward. You're being a moneymaker,
Mm-hmm.
a glory hound, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout his entire time, because that's when Glucon, another person at the party, kind of
Right.
breaks in because he didn't understand the whole penalty thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so Socrates explains that to him, and then I said the entire time, Thrasymachus is reluctantly
Yeah.
agreeing, and he even says that I'm not going to even argue with you.
You're
I'm just going
right.
to give
Yeah.
you empty,
Yeah.
remarks and all that
Right.
stuff. And Socrates like, I wish you wouldn't, but I really don't
Right.
care at this
Right.
moment, you know. But at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
Socrates says that he was distracted. He got that distracted with this whole business of
Right.
injustice
Justice.
being
Uh-huh.
better than justice. So distracted that he never
Answer
actually answered
answers
his
the question.
question
Right.
of what is justice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was never able to answer it, and I think it's open ended for a reason
Mm-hmm.
at the end because there's some answers that really, I mean, some questions that really don't have an answer. And I think that that's something that you really don't see from Socrates
Mm-hmm.
or Plato at the point. I
Mm-hmm.
think his point is that there is an answer to this question, but he just never answered
Mm-hmm.
it, right? So that's why we end where we started with the
Yeah.
question of
Oh.
what is justice,
Mm-hmm.
right? And and like virtue,
Mm-hmm.
it's it depends on the situation
Mm-hmm.
and the society you're in and the
Mm-hmm.
priorities that your society holds, right? And it's that there is no concrete basis for justice.
Mm-hmm.
These things, it's a human feeling, it's a
Mm-hmm.
human construction. These things do not objectively exist. You know, it is a human pursuit, and so it's never going to exist on any concrete basis,
Mm-hmm.
right? But if 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 I had to give it one,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, justice is doing your best
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do what's best to alleviate your predicament, to try to do your best to solve the problem to the best of your ability.
Mm-hmm.
That is justice. And like I said before, that sometimes doing what's right isn't always what's best.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes all you have are bad choices, but you still have to choose,
Mm-hmm.
right? So at everything is going to entail compromise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything's going to entail compromise, but you do your best
Mm-hmm.
in those predicaments, in those situations, to try and alleviate the situation in an optimal, in a human fashion. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, and sometimes it's not efficient. It's not quick
Yeah.
and it's not absolute.
Mm-hmm.
But what it is when you're prioritizing human beings and the lives of the people that you're existing, that if you're prioritizing the lives of the people that you are meant to, or that justice is meant to serve, if you're doing those things, then it's not meant to be profitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be, I guess, swift and absolute.
Right. And delaying is an intentional act. So if you are delaying the justice, right, then you are denying it as well. So when I asked about, the
Mm-hmm.
man who spent 30 years or whatever in prison, and I'm like, well, what is the justice for him? And you're like, well, his freedom. And I'm like, yes, I'm not denying that. But but there's more that has to be done. Not so much to make up, but now he's 30 years. He's 30 years delayed in his own development. You know, of the person that maybe he would have become had he not been in prison. But now he has to start from just the point of freedom, and now he has to be allowed to grow. And he's going to need the help and the services that he needs in order to do that. And to deny him that, just to give him just his freedom, you know, is
Well,
it's
that's
not.
that's the thing is that like I said, like what money,
No, I'm
stuff like
just
that, like that. If you're asking,
mm-hmm,
what is justice to a person who's been in jail for 30 years, wrongfully,
mm-hmm,
right? What is justice to that person,
mm-hmm,
right? And so, what justice would be like that's alleviating his situation,
mm-hmm,
that's getting him out of jail.
mm-hmm.
Now, but asking, okay, now how does he make a life after that?
Mm-hmm.
That's a different question to me,
Okay.
right? Because I mean, you don't have to be in jail for 30 years for the system to take you for everything that you got and
Yeah.
not give you any chance,
Yes, we yeah.
to make a life for
Right.
yourself. You know, and so you don't have to be in jail for 30 years for that, but alleviating that,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that there is a system, that gives you a chance,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of your background, where
Mm-hmm.
you come from, and stuff like that. That is the aim.
Mm-hmm.
That is the work. And like I said before, that it's not. Listen, we sometimes believe that we are existing in the time,
Mm-hmm.
when really all we're existing in is a time,
Mm-hmm.
a moment in human existence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And in our time, the time that we have now, our aim should be trying to alleviate and solve the problems as they are present to
Right.
us today.
Today. Mm-hmm.
Like I said, trying to fix, quote unquote, our world, trying to solve our problems is a pursuit that goes far beyond us.
Mm-hmm.
People have been doing this for a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
constantly questioning, constantly trying to improve, ever since society was created.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people from both within and without,
Right.
on either side of the spectrum, whether you believe your society is good or bad and all that stuff forth.
Mm-hmm.
All that pursuit of trying to maintain and trying to create has always been there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, us in our time, it's not our responsibility to solve it forever and always.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it
Because
sounds like we talked
it's
about that.
not
Right.
because it is never ever going to be solved forever
Mm-hmm. No,
and
and always. Mm-hmm.
always. Like you said, things change,
Mm-hmm.
things move.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to move regardless. Like we said, uh, evolution is natural.
Right.
Things are going to
Right.
change, right? But
Progress
progress
is a whole
is
nother
is a whole
animal.
other thing.
Yeah.
It is our responsibility to make our movement
Progress.
progress, to make it constructive. And that is, I would say, the aim of justice, or
Mm-hmm.
the aim of virtue, or the
Mm-hmm.
aim of anything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, is trying to create something constructive, doing our best
Mm-hmm.
to try to get some progress. I try to get, and like I said, justice and progress, right? We often, prioritize getting justice, or we often prioritize trying to get progress.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we get neither.
Mm-hmm.
No justice, no progress.
Mm-hmm.
So now, at this point, we have to prioritize. Let's say we have to prioritize justice
Mm-hmm.
through
Progress.
progress, being able to move
Mm-hmm.
forward, and that being our
Mm-hmm.
justice, right? So, however, whatever your opinion of what justice is, whether
Mm-hmm.
it is, paying what's owed, the advantage of the strong, or whatever it may
Right.
be, how the myriad
Right.
opinions of what this
Right.
may be,
Right.
it always has to be, like we said many times
Uh-huh.
before, tempered in the knowledge that you are not in this world alone,
Mm-hmm.
that we all exist, and all live with the consequences of each other's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Humanity does not exist in a vacuum,
Right.
you know, and everything that we do has to be tempered with the knowledge that it has to be not just for us,
Mm-hmm.
but for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to marry those two things, to pursue your individual pursuits and your societal pursuits. That is the thing that we need to
Mm-hmm.
prioritize, right? We can't prioritize our individual pursuits or societal pursuits, and we can't prioritize the maintenance of our society over the maintenance of the individual.
Right.
And that's what we see. Like, but this is give and take, like this equity, this
Mm-hmm.
balancing act, like trying to, you know, thinking that one is coming at the
Cost
cost
of
of
the
the other.
mm-hmm.
Constantly shifting weight back and forth, and that's it cannot be
Be
that
that
way
way. That's right.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's unsustainable.
Mm-hmm. So
If we
yeah.
are actually looking for justice, then the entire metric in which this existing in has to
Has changed.
change.
Right.
So yes, that was the first book
Mm-hmm.
of the Republic. What is justice? And if you have any comments, leave them in the comments. And once again, thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.